Streaming. Alright everybody, hey, it is Saturday, June 13th, 2020. I got munchkins that are being really loud with me, and there's a lot of stuff I want to say, but I'm trying to make sure that this YouTube channel is okay because there's a lot of videos. So I'm not going to say what I want to say, so Ed, why don't you take it away?
You highlight it then. Can't do without getting
okay,
into it.
You know what? Highlight it. Very simply. Highlighting it. Y'all are damn morons. If you ain't part of the United States of America, if you're not part of the 48 states, if you think you can take an area and make it your own, you're a moron. If you think based on the color of your skin that you can dictate what happens to others, you're a moron. If you think you can dictate whether a certain color of skin can if you think you can dictate a certain color of skin needs to pay more taxes to cover another color of skin in luxury, if you think you can dictate what color of skin can date or marry or reproduce with another color of skin, you're a moron. Because color of skin is nothing. It's what's up in the head. And honestly, if you're thinking that it is the skin, then you ain't got nothing in your head. There, I highlighted it without actually pointing out specific groups.
I get you, no problem. We know how stupidity does prevail with a lot of people. And that's the one thing, too. I wanted to get into the nice conversation on this one to make sure that you guys are confirming and comprehending this reality that's going to be coming to your medical facilities. All right? You're going to end up have to take a COVID-19 test before you go in the hospital, even to visit anybody, to do anything in the hospital. And that means if you fail, you go right to their infirmaries. You don't get a court, you don't get a trial, you don't get a judgment day, you get nothing, you just go right into a fucking cell. Primarily is what it's going to be. This is reality, folks. This is not no bullshit. I mean, I just went through this, so I'm typing up this because I got to go out to the hospital and get some other test run on my heart I want to do. But then they're telling me I have to clear and do this, that, or the other thing before I can even come in the hospital. So I will be putting up a template on what I'm going to be doing and putting out there on this. And I will be putting it up so it's filed with the administration of the hospital and the medical board of the medical board of society. And I will be including the birth certificate, bond, and insurance plans in it. So that way they know that we know, and we're tired of the bullshit. Because they're doing this just to close up because they don't want the people to start waking up as we are doing and know how to start taking our resources. They don't want you to do that because, oh my God, they can't lose their retirement. You know, and this is one thing that's been already talked about. It's already been brought up. This is nothing new. You know, you've been paying attention even on Facebook or the mainstream media, you can really learn how to read between the lines. And once you learn how to read between the lines, it's an interesting little gamut. It sure is nothing but a game. And that's the one thing that people got to comprehend. We know the Bible ain't real. It's all a game. Your administration for your state, city, and county, it's a game. We know it. Go ahead.
Just saying, because I'm on this the moron thing. Most of those morons out there don't know how to read, let alone read between lines.
No, that's true. You got a point there. Not everybody could read between the lines and catch on. You know. So if you don't know how between the read the lines, I apologize for calling you a moron. The ones who can, you're a moron. Say, you're not helping out the others to comprehend what's going down the pike and what's coming down the pike. Now, you know, it's interesting because Trump has done quite a few good things for the people, but then again, he's done quite a few bad things. that he's been waking up on. So, and I mean, I don't vote. I don't get involved in it. I am running for office. I am playing the political game. I've got them on the ropes in a sense because they're pissed off because I won't fill the paperwork out the way they want me to fill out the paperwork running for office. And I said, I'm not signing that paperwork because I don't work for the Queen of England. I'm not going to do that. And they're going, well, if you do, you know, win the election, you're going to have to sign that paperwork. And I said, no, we'll have to decide that at the time. But I'm not going to get into it with this at the point. But, you know, the point is I can't put natives in the structure. And that's the one thing you got to comprehend. File your rights. This ain't a damn joke. If you're not filing your rights, you're not getting this stuff done. And when the shit hits the fan and they go, papers, please. You know, it's like the force will be with you. And if you don't know the force to be with you, they're going to take you away. So you have to know what the paperwork means, how this structure really comes down. Because they're going and asking people to take medical tests. They're doing it on the freeways and highways right now. And if you fail, what do? They haul you right to jail. Okay, and then, you know, oh, you're going to go to a medical facility. No, you're going to jail first, getting fingerprinted, and you're going to get copied and all that stuff, and then you'll go to a medical facility afterwards. Then that way they can put you as delusions of grandeur or something, so they can start getting on the public trust funds. I mean, these people are smart. They're not stupid. All these cops and these lawyers will say, oh, I don't know that that's happening. I'm stupid. You know, I get really so tired of listening to these public employees defending themselves, these groups out there defending these public employees that are sitting there arresting people, these people defending these sheriff's officers and these sheriff deputies that kidnapping and holding people for ransom for not having a driver's license or fishing license. And before I get too far, I would like to thank and honor those that show us honor and respect who honor their oath of servitude. We do have some damn good elected and public servants out there. So let's not forget, we do have good public servants out there. But the ones that are not doing their job, you know, it's not like we're trying to put you in a position so we're going after you. You know, but that's a different story what I'm doing because I've already been already trying to explain this to these people. They know it. You know, and it's amazing. And, you know, people say, these people don't know it. Give them a breakhead. I mean, you know, it's like, how stupid can you be? I mean, the Queen Elizabeth comes out and says, we're going to take your kids. We did it in World War II time. We're going to do it again. Don't you people have any, can't you see the light? You know, the Queen terrorist is celebrating her 94th birthday today. You know? And who gives a shit? You know, they're coming out with the coronavirus and a pandemic. You know, they knew. Let me explain this to you, people. I've said this to you many times. When I went and read all these Senate and House bills at the Oregon State House and Senate, I literally sat down and read these things. When you hear Pelosi and these congressmen and senators and tell you point blank, oh, we didn't read it, but we passed it. Oh, yeah, they passed it because they got $100,000, $50,000, something like that. They got free tuition to send their kids to school, free housing. You know, and then they're saying they're supposed to be able to get that. No, they're not supposed to be able to get that. You know, that is the one thing, you know, it's like you don't get it. You know, these people are going to take advantage of you right to the bank. Literally right to the bank. They don't care. They're doing it right now to you. I mean, and that's the one thing I got filed. And like I said, we are putting this stuff together. And then once I get this thing put together, I will be filing it publicly, and I will be filing it with the Department of Utility Commission in the state of Oregon so we can start putting this stuff to action. But that's going to take people doing this stuff, standing up and not talking. Because when people are sitting there talking, I'm going to suggest that we don't deal with people who are talking anymore because we're tired of wasting breath because we got to get things moving. Because if we don't protect the future for their children, there is no future for them. I mean, I have no children to pass a future to. So, you know, that's just the way it all bounced in my lifetime. But for those who do, you guys got to get this together, start putting it together because what's coming down the pike, file it on your child. File and own that copyright name. You know, and that's the one thing the state will tell you, oh, you can't do that. You can't do this. And that's the one thing that you need to put in writing and have them explain it to you. But always ask in a question. Never tell them my intent is to sue you. Never tell them that I'm going to do this or that and I'm going to curse the high wave on you. Don't get into that with them. Don't give them any ammunition whatsoever. One thing is to start reading the paperwork. And if you know our website, new.org and trackers, we have a whole bunch. You know, we do have a gentleman that's been so kind putting up this information and getting it out for you folks. We noticed that we've had more hits. We've had another 60 people join our groups this week alone. You know, in the last couple of months, we've been averaging anywhere from 65 to 175 joining a week. Because people are starting to realize that they've gone to everybody else. And this is the point that, you know, all these people say keep in the system. Go, God's going to save you. And, you know, the court systems are the British court system of God. Well, it is true, but I don't have to play it, neither do you. If you're native, you do not have to accept those terms. Because the treaty that we have with the British government, remember, each and every state has a treaty with the British government. Not one state is exempt, except Alaska and Hawaii. Alaska is still no man's land, technically, and Hawaii is still owned by the Queen of England. And that's even in your paperwork in Title 28, 2003. And you can go and read 313. And also, too, read the structure on the sheriff, on the marshal's deputies. So everybody keeps going, the sheriff has power. Well, the sheriff has only power if he's honoring his oath, and that means he doesn't have a police department. And that means technically, and then like when I had Commissioner Hall even admitted when we were running for office a month and a half ago, that the sheriff's department is only allowed in the courtrooms. And so that's the point. You got to realize they're only allowed in the courtroom. So when you're wanting to have these police departments rape, rob, and pillage your children, steal your homes for their own personal gain, remember, that's the same thing as the courts doing it and taking from you. It's the same thing as your God stealing from you to pay the king's wage. Remember, the king's wage is for the God. You know, read your Bible. Comprehend the way the Bible is read on this stuff. You know, this is the one thing, it's like interesting because, you know, now they're claiming that this one kid got hung, you know, hung by the neck in the state of California. Okay, so now we're going through racial wars. I would say that has nothing to do with the racial war. I have a feeling that was something to do with the public employees trying to stir up more and more of this stuff going on. You know, and if it ain't, then whoever those people that hung that poor bastard should be hung themselves. Let their family feel the pain and suffering. Because, I mean, this is the saddest part. If we're going through this stuff, you know, and we got 330 million people, 120 million people that invaded this country in the last 80 years. Oh, yeah, we've had that many people coming in over the border, through the structure. You know, so this is the one thing is like you've got to comprehend, you know, what's going on here. Because this is a reality that we are living right now. Now, the next phase, we're going to be looking at cannibalism. Yes, this is not a joke. This is a reality. It's already been discussed. They've already discussed it in public meetings. There's 7 restaurants in the United States that serve cadaver meat. Type in New York City, San Francisco, and Chicago, human meat restaurants. So you already got this stuff right in front of your face, but people go, oh, I'm going to turn a blind eye. I'm going to put my hands up. I'm not going to see. I'm going to do monkey see, monkey can't see, monkey can't hear, monkey can't speak. So we're going through this problems right now. It's going to get worse, folks. I mean, you haven't even seen this. When they're sitting there telling me that I have to get clearance before I can enter the hospital, if they're going to allow me to go in the hospital, or if I'm going to one of their treatment centers, if they want to claim that, what is that? Oh, that's right, I might have a health issue. I already have health issues. I've died 13 times. Long heart, kidney failure, 20 blown discs, 7 blown discs in the spinal cord, a crushed lower back, my neck's titanium. You think I don't have any issues? Well, this is what bothers me, you know. The disabled are being treated worse than the people are. The disabled are being treated, and the elderly are being treated worse than you people on their jobs. And you think you got it bad. I mean, we're getting the crumbs. See, that's the one thing. We, most of us comprehend when we went to work, we knew that when the private sector was private and the public sector was the British government. It's never changed. I mean, shit, I knew that when I was 15 years old. You all saw the separation, and we are a republic form of government, not Republican. Republican was added into the stuff and rewritten into history. Was always republic. And the original foundation of the word republic, not Republican. That's right. There's no democracy. There's no Democrats. There's no, you know, and then that's the one thing they created all this, like, right to vote. Oh, I got a right to vote. No, you don't have a right to vote. So technically and legally, if you actually read the 17th Amendment and read what the history of the country is, if you are a citizen, yes. Corporation member, yes. An immigrant, technically, yeah, somewhat, but technically immigrants are not supposed to vote 100% at all. See, that's the one thing, you know, you don't have rights until you're 5 or more generations. And what they're doing right now is really getting scary, because they're talking about opening up the border for a million more people is what the Democrats and Pelosi's pushing for. How are we going to feed these people when we can't even feed ourselves right now? How are we going to have toilet paper for them to wipe themselves up? We already got it bad enough in the big cities, Chicago, San Francisco, New York, and some of the other cities where they're dumping their turds right on the street corners. And see, that's the one thing, you know. That's the one thing that people don't get, this structure. We are sitting there with this structure to how we are screwing ourselves and the children. And we're screwing ourselves. Excuse me. We're screwing ourselves right off the bat first. The children don't even get that until they get 18 and they're out in the street, because parents and people take care of the kids better than they take care of themselves most times. So we already know that. That's the one thing that, you know, this is the one thing that people are aware of what's going on. You know, this is not just something that is just new. It's something that has been out there for some time. So I want to pull up a couple things, but this is the one thing, you know, I want to get you guys to comprehend. Well, you're going to be coming up to some scary things coming down the road. You know, if you don't sit there and start learning to protect yourself, read these administrative rules, learn how to talk the language of these public servants. And everybody says, well, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. Well, you know, it's like one guy said to me, well, who gives you rights? Prove it. When they're hauling you off to jail. You know, I mean, shit, I can't tell you how many times I've been hauled off and been through all this stuff. I got videotapes. You know, of course, I keep filing on them every other week, every third week. And so I'm building up the other track record and evidence. And that's what you have to do when you have these problems. Make sure that you have the track record. Don't live in the fantasy that some of these people have. I've talked to these people, and they said this guy in this group, and this guy in that group, and this girl in this group, and this girl in that group. They got all these things that are come to light, and we're going to be following them, and they're going to do all this wonderful stuff, and then all of a sudden they never get anywhere. But I watch these people send, you know, $500, $600, $700, $1,000 to these people. And they're not getting anything done. This is the whole point. You have to write it yourself. You know? That's the one thing. I mean, right now, we got this stuff where you're not even supposed to walk in a grocery store without a mask. I mean, in most places, they're panicking. I mean, I went on the bus the other day, and for the first time, you know, oh, my God, you know, you can't be on the bus without a mask. Last time I rode the bus, we didn't have a mask, and that was just a month ago. Now, all of a sudden, it's getting more and more extreme out there. If you're not out in the front line and you don't see it right out there in front of your face, you don't notice it. But the other people that is out there know what's going on. You know, we see what they're doing. We see what's coming down the pike. They're going to be setting up trying to do this stuff so that way they can go and control yourself and then put chips in you. If you don't have certain vaccinations, they said, oh, in the state of Oregon, they're going to push that. If you don't get vaccinated your kids can't go to school. All right, fine. Get your affidavits filled out. All right? And that's the main thing you got to realize, too, is you got to fill that stuff out and do it. And then when they try to come back and say, well, your kid didn't do this and your kids didn't do that, I don't have to put them in school. There's no law that says I have to put my kids in school. You know, it's administrative code. I need something in writing that says it's the law. And then I need something in writing that says that you are that authority. You know, I mean, I've watched videos and I've had cops say, the badge gives me the rights. And I stopped laughing because I was a policy punk myself, or policy officer. Been there, done it. You know, I even ran my own security company for a while. You know, and then you start thinking about, do you want the liability? Do you want the responsibility? And that's the one thing that people don't get. They get on people's, oh, you should do this and you should do that. But these people won't take that severe responsibility themselves. See, that's the one thing. Everybody's preaching everybody else how to live and what everybody else should do. You know, and when you get your nose out of somebody else's business, oh, we wouldn't have the problems we have. And that is the one thing. We have a lot of these problems because people's noses are in too many businesses. Hang on a second. I gotta get some moisture in my throat. Thank you. So, anyhow, we're putting this stuff together. I'm working on 4 projects right now, actually 7. But 3 I got on back hold right now. Because I've been overwhelmed with some projects here lately. You know, and this is the one thing, is the one thing that you got to realize. I mean, you know, we got all these looters going on, you know, and then you got these people that are upset because this one guy, you know, shot this 18 or 17-year-old kid in the chest when he broke in his house and started looting his house. And everybody's sitting there going, oh, my God, this poor guy. You know, this ain't like the guy who got beat up by the cops and got his neck broken and killed. We're talking about a guy that went into somebody's home to steal and harm the people. You don't have rights when you freak in somebody's home and you're causing harm. You know, I mean, I watch these people all the time, you know, on the internet and other stuff. You know, oh, the kid shouldn't have been shot and killed, and, you know, you should have gave the kid a warning shot. You should have gave the kid this or that. It's like, no, the parents failed. You parents failed the kids by doing that. We're not educating if they get in trouble. Yeah, when we grew up 40, 50 years ago, you know, we knew better. We didn't come home by getting drugged home by a cop because we knew we were going to get our ass whooped before worse than a cop would ever do. Today, it's a totally different story, but, you know, back 30, 40, 50 years ago, you know, I mean, back there, people had respect and honor. There's no respect and honor today. You know, this is the one thing that, you know, you watch all this crazy stuff going on right now. You know, it's like the Queen's out there celebrating her 94th birthday and saying, I own you, I own you. I mean, there was a point in New York Magazine where they came out with Obama and the Queen of England says, we'll take you over. You know, let's keep putting this stuff all over. Oh, elect Obama. Can Obama do another term? I mean, do you realize what they're doing to your Constitution? If they get Obama in for another term, you just lost everything. Your children, all your rights, everything is gone. You have no future, no structure, no nothing. And that's what we're trying to fight and keep. That's why we want to get you folks educated. Now, we are still working hard. We're putting together this structure together so you guys can start getting this out. We'll get it out in platform. Some of the people sent me their emails in the last 2 weeks. I have responded to, I believe, all of them. If I have not responded to all of them, please let me know. And so that's the one thing about the education that, you know, we have to work together. You know, it's all of us working together on this project to educate not only ourselves, but the children. And the children can start learning at 5 years old. You know, you get all these crazy people going, oh, these kids need to have play. They shouldn't learn until they get high school. No, you want the kids to start learning as soon as possible because you want their attention on it, because when they get after, 6th or 7th grade, they're brain dead at that point because they never had the intelligence to think. And that's the one thing. Intelligence is taught, earned. You know, it's not always what people think it is. You know, it really is not what people think it is. And so that's the scary part. We're living on this structure today. And that's the one thing that people have to realize, you know, what the future is coming down. So I do encourage you, you know, if you need some suggestions, I don't have a problem giving suggestions. We are not lawyers, we are not attorneys, and we sure are not into religion. So let me clarify that for certain people. Because I get people all the time, oh, Ed, Jesus is going to save you and stuff. But, you know, I've been dead too many times. And the thing is, if Jesus was going to save us, he would have done it, you know, 100 years ago, 2,000 years ago. You know, when are we going to start saying, all right, 2,000 years, where's Jesus? Where's God? Where's the Lord? Yeah, I mean, I already passed all that point with all this craziness for the last, 60 years of my life. So, I mean, and, you know, why do we still live in fairy tale land? We know Christmas is not real, so we're teaching our kids more lies. And then you wonder why the kids lie to you and they do this stuff because you taught them how to lie. It's your fault. It's your liability that you express to them. Here, you can lie. You get away with it. White lies are acceptable. You know, that's the one problem. I just can't. I cannot go on with that. I can't play those games like that. Because when you play those games, somebody always gets hurt. You know, and, you know, that's the one thing that they always say. You can tell somebody lies, and then they'll come up and track on you because you can't remember what lie you told this week or that week. You know. So this is the other point, that you got to pay attention to your Facebook and stuff and your Yahoo. Now, Yahoo is owned by British Parliament now. It was bought out of the United States and bought into Canada under Parliament. So that is the one thing that people got. You got to pay attention to what's going on in the stock market, too. Who's doing what? It means so much. People always say, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect me. Well, if it doesn't affect you, then how come barrels at $50, oil is at $50 a barrel and you're paying, you know, $2, $3 a gallon of gas when it should be 59 cents? So that's the thing that always disturbs me. How come people are not paying attention to what the real facts are, the real pricing structure is? You know, I still remember what the days when, eggs were, what was it, 35, 30 cents a dozen of eggs. You know, but inflation is created by your banking system and your government is run and controlled by the banking system of England, because your Senate and House is still controlled by England. See, this is the one thing that when people don't realize that we have two constitutions, we have two administrative rules. We have one for the natives and we have one for the corporation employees. You know, they don't want you to know that the natives have rights because, oh my God, if people actually knew that the rights of the natives still own this country. You know, I've done the research. I've done it. I've even questioned this to the Congress and Senate, and people are like, oh, shit. And so the stuff that you see on the stuff that you've seen that I'm putting out on the Indians and the native history of this country, and Native history, because Native is not just Indian, okay, but Native history, and if your bloodline goes back to 1890, you're guaranteed Native. So that means you have rights, so you have a right to question these people. But remember, always ask a question with a question, and always ask these people if you've got a traffic ticket. Hey, call your congressman. Hey, congressman, I need you to sit there and support me on this ticket. Aren't you my representative? Isn't that your job? To represent my straw man account, my birth certificate funding account, my bank statement when I go into a court? Isn't that what your job is? See, that's the one thing. These people out there on these other groups, man, they're not telling all these facts. They're not telling these truths. And you got to realize that these facts and stuff that you're living by, I mean, when they're telling you that you have to go through testing now for the hospitals, and they get to decide if you have a right to medical treatment, you have a right to life. You don't get a jury, you don't get a court date, you get nothing. You just get execution papers? And you think Adolf Hitler was bad. You're living it right now. This has come from the Democratic Party. And you can't bitch to Trump on this one because Trump signed the paperwork and gave the natives back the country. Nobody paid that either. And people keep going off on Trump and all this stuff. Trump is the president of a corpse. A corpse is a dead body, does not exist. The corporation foundation of a corpse, the lawyer and attorney structure. The bar, your court system, your administration system, your city, county, and state are corpse, dead bodies. And see, that's the one thing that you're not paying attention to what's really going on here, because if you don't even know this structure, you are really lost. Because, I mean, this stuff is all in your movies. I mean, it's amazing you watch certain movies, and if you actually open your mind and you pay attention to what some of these movies are telling you, you'll be amazed what you learn. And that is scary with some of these movies, what they're bringing out. You know, I mean, I'll start putting a list of movies up that I'm going to be recommending for people to watch. Rider was a hell of a movie that, oh, God, I'm having the brain for it right now. The actor played in. And if you don't know about John Wick, that's a hell of a movie, too. Watch that. And you can watch on that on 123 Movie Channel, 123 PUT, P-U-T, Luck Channel. Those are free movie channels today. Why are you paying for all this stuff? Because it was already prepaid. That's the point of trying to explain this to people. I mean, you know, your cities and counties are supposed to have film crews there for you for televising public meetings. Your public meetings, not theirs. They have the funding because it comes by the excise fees that are paid by, what is that, when you have a water, sewer, electricity bill, and you have cable bill. You have HBO, CBS, you have, what is that, you got NBC. I mean, you got all these things out there, and you don't even get what's really going on in the world. Everybody keeps going, and they keep saying, oh, we're a country that you have to pay for. See, the kids today are already taught they have to pay for things before they can even get out of the chute. You know, if you don't pay for air, I mean, you know, they're pushing in the state of Oregon, like even in your state. You know, what is that? I think it's called, you know, a carbon tax, your carbon unit. If you don't have carbon in your blood, you suffocate to death, you die. I know, that's happened to me almost 3 times dying because my carbon unit was done. You know, even ambulance rides, you know, across from county to county. You know, 70-mile ambulance rides to another hospital. You know, and that's the one thing. In our county, if you spend the $60 a year, you get airlift, free airplane rides to any of the hospitals in the state. But that's in my county. That was one of the bills that I put in and pushed for when they cut out the property tax structure, because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar by me, and they were pocketing the money. And see, when you was paying your property taxes, that went to the hospital fees. So that way it was called an indigent. So if you didn't have money to pay your hospital fees, it was already covered. They already wrote it off on your 1099 thing. Oh, that's my right because the 14th Amendment and the First Amendment gives me that right in the original Indian treaties because I'm a Native American. If you're not Native, you don't have rights. So we're not getting into that point. You're just dealing with the reality. You're not Native, you have no rights, period. We don't care. You're not to be in our country. I can't come into your home and tell you how to live, and now you're coming into my home telling us how to live? You know, we're supposed to have all these special holidays we're supposed to be, celebrating. How come we're not celebrating Native American Day? How come we're not celebrating Elder Day? Instead of the corporation, grandparents, Mother's Day. All of the corporation names. And then you guys go along with this stuff, and then you want freedom. How can you have freedom when you don't even know what freedom is because you don't even want to stand for it? The Bible is more important than your freedom. And that's the one thing people are not getting on to it. Oh, the Bible, Ed, you can't go against the Bible. I'm telling you, I'm going against the Bible because it screwed you up. Because you're not a free thinker. You already judge people before you get out of the corner. You already judged them the minute they spoke. Trust me, I know what it's like. I'm having heart attacks off and on. You know what I found out through the medical society and stuff that I went through. People are going, oh, Ed's just drunk. Ed's just drunk. And I was going through heart attacks even on some of the talk shows I was on. So that's what I'm saying, that people just sit there and judge. It's like a cop sitting there judging because he's watching somebody might be having a heart attack or something like that. He's like that disabled guy. When a guy was trying to sign to the cop shoots him. 18-year-old boy trying to sign to the cop, and the cop pulls out his gun and shoots him. And his story and his lame excuse was, I thought he had a weapon on him. It's like, come on. Now that cop should be in prison for murder. That was no accident. That was a deliberately stated murder charge. See, and at least these other cops, some of them are facing murder charges about time. And this is what you folks need to be out there standing up and supporting these agencies when they're standing up and saying, all right, this cop is bad. We're going to go after this guy and charge him movie. So that's the one thing. You have to do that. And once you start doing that, then all of a sudden, if things start moving, it's wonderful how these things start happening in our country when we start standing up together. But getting people to stand up together, that's the most difficult thing that we're having right now today, because everybody's going, my feelings, my this, my that, all about me, 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 when you've got to come to realize my rights are violated, your rights are violated. I'm getting ready, and I will have this template up in a few days. Like I said, I'm overwhelmed, but when I'm told I got to do this, and they're telling me I got to, do these, jump through special hoops now when I go to the hospital, and they get to determine if I'm allowed in public, or they can put me into, some funky home. See, that's the one thing, they're making these decisions. And where are you people out there when they're making these decisions? It's your rights. I mean, these people are going to jail getting assaulted. Where are the people standing up for these people? We're seeing them starting to stand up, but the point is you need to stand up and learn how to write the criminal charges. Write the criminal charges on the terrorists. These are domestic terrorists. And that's the one thing you have to clarify. These things are domestic terrorists. So when these people are being terrorists and acting like terrorists, this is the way we've got to treat them. And I do believe in getting them benefit of doubt in a day in court, but also, too, the day in court has to be done by the people, not by a judge, not by a jury. Because that's the one thing is there is no judge. The judge is a private corporation. And so that's the one thing that we've got to start setting up and standing up on these things and comprehending these things. So most of us do this, know this, or doing this, and it's how do we sit there and solve the problems? We know how to solve the problems. Now it's going to take us to act in it. It's going to take us to do it. You know, this is the one thing, this is why the state makes so much money on your Article 4, Section 4 of the Social Security Code for disability child and children in the state custody. And how come you people are not out there standing up and telling these, you don't want these kids on drugs? You know, oh, they need Ritalin. Hey, get the kid out and, let the kid go run and play. You know, let the kid really run. He might learn something. See, that's the one thing. You know, if you let them outside, they can learn something. And that's the point that most people don't even comprehend. How do you think you learn how to climb trees, fall out in the trees and hurt yourself and get up the next day and do it again? Most of us did that stuff. So, anyhow, don't forget that your courtrooms, when you go into these courtrooms today that you're going into, these are courtrooms of foreign identity. And we're just posting up, what do they call their courtrooms? They're under a military commission. So, and that's been posted up again. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, we are educating each other. We're getting more and more education out there. But as we're doing this, we have to stand up along with each other. And when somebody has an issue, stand up with them. You know, we can do that. We can make sure these things happen. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. Let's bring some commentaries in. I still got some work that I have to, you know, sometime get through tonight. And that's the one thing that, you know, it comes down to all this point. What are we going to do tomorrow? You know, we just went through the phase of no toilet paper. Now they're talking no food again. So if you got resources, all right, if you got a freezer, go talk to your farmer about buying one of his steers or going in with everybody else is doing it. Get more steers and do a butcher day in September or October. You know, fatten them up for the next 5-6 months, and everybody gets a cut of the beef. There are ways of solving these problems, and it's up to us to do it. We can't rely on the grocery store. You know, you can't rely on your representative because your representative is not representing you. So anyhow, I always said, let's go ahead and open up the floor.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody like to bring anything up this evening?
Hey, Ed.
Yep.
In the coast, the government is supposed to be able to purchase land only for like making military forts and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, they cannot purchase for school buildings and that type of stuff, technically.
Yeah.
It was only set up for military compounds.
Yeah, they can't have like national or federal national forests and stuff like that.
Right, they can't even have national football leagues because the taxpayers pay for your racing cars, your boats, your tennis games. All that is taxpayer funded.
Also, where does it say again that you have a right to defend yourself against the police?
Oh, well, also, too, that is the Bad Elk case, 1908 Bad Elk case. Yeah, and you can type in, you have the lawful right to defend yourself. And several states have put that in, that if a police officer comes into your home, you can shoot him. There's 11 states have passed those laws that you can protect your home.
Okay.
And so, go ahead.
No, I said I yield. That's all I wanted to know.
So, yeah, and we have that. I know because I've talked about it before in the past. So I know that for a fact. I've talked about that. So, but yeah, we should have that up on the website, I believe, too. And if not, I'll get you that when I get back to that. But that'll be a little while before I get to you on that one, because like I said, I'm literally behind schedule on a couple projects I'm working on.
No, I've got it. I was just trying to remember it. You know, getting old here, trying to remember stuff.
Oh, you're still a young buck.
50.
Wait.
Yeah. How many years I got you?
All right, wait a minute, Ed. Okay, you're either calling him a venison maker, or you're calling him a fake denomination. Which one is it?
I'm not a fake denomination. I like it when you come in and do that. You know he does that deliberately. You know he enjoys this stuff, don't you?
Yes, I know.
So, you know, it's interesting. I watched this, and another guy just posted a video because he's got all the cops at his front door, you know. And if this guy would have actually filed his paperwork, he wouldn't have the cops at his door. But people think, oh, you know, you don't need to file these papers. They're not going to do you any good.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
On this subject, are the cops and the judges terrorists?
No. Actually, a lot of them have been acting as terrorists, domestic terrorists. So that is a federal crime. Not honoring their oath of servitude, because they're supposed to bow their head and serve us.
No,
right.
They're not. Just a minute now. Don't they work for a corporation? And isn't the object of a corporation to make more money and to get bigger and bigger?
To a degree, but they have administrative rules that they have to follow by the Constitution that was lined it out so they could have a job, and that was done in the Treaty of 1867.
Well, it's funny, them administrative rules are just somebody's policy. They admit over and over again that it's policy.
And that's what I'm saying.
Not
we
law.
don't need to have them employed. That's why Minnesota, Minneapolis is getting ready to fire their entire police department. Everybody's freaking out going, you can't fire them. And they're right now, the city council is getting ready to vote to disband the entire police department.
Well, it's nothing but corporations.
That's right. And people are freaking out. And it's like, people are actually waking up to this truth because if they're not honoring an oath that they're supposed to take, like a judge is supposed to take an oath to protect his courtroom, and he's not protecting it, and he's making profits and robbing and pillaging. You know, yeah, we're on the same point of that one, but I mean, these guys are just doing all this stuff, and you know, and they're blaming all the people on this stuff.
Now you understand.
Go ahead.
You understand that, like in Oregon and other states, they have one corporation after another.
Yes.
They have like Department of Administrative Services. They have the Department of Justice. Even a corporation called State of Oregon, Secretary of State.
They have the Department of Treasury, too.
The Legislative Revenue Office, Department of Justice. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And so it's all corporations. They're not, people seem to sometimes think that corporation took an oath to the Constitution. It's just a private corporation. They're in all them corporations like the Public Employee Retirement System. They're in the business to make money. They want to retire when they're 55 years old and get $200,000-300,000 a year. And I know I've got some of how much they get paid. I've got them documents.
No, I know that one too. You know, I personally know that too. I spent there with the Senate, and I know what they're getting paid. Go ahead.
Well, the problem is the corporations. They hide behind a corporation. And after all, isn't it state of Oregon versus you, Ed Johnston, when you have a court case? The state of, okay, who's Mr. State of Oregon?
That's
I've
the
never
question.
seen the color. I've never seen the color of his hair.
Exactly.
I've helped several people win cases on just that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Are you Mr. State of Oregon?
And who authorized you to be?
You what?
And who authorized you to be?
They're not. But I've never had a cop yet say that they were Mr. State of Oregon.
I know.
All they do is say, I represent the state of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then let's bring the state
Well,
in.
then I say, I want to see your power of attorney. Case dismissed.
Yep, got it. No, it is how you can do this. Like I just went through a lady with her kid case, and she's trying to argue with me about what the attorney says this, and I said, how simple it is. Do you own it? Did you give birth to that child? Yes. How as you file that you own the child, and for them to prove that they have ownership. Because they come out and prove that with the birth certificate record, they know what that's going to do.
Pandora's box.
Go ahead.
So that'll be Pandora's box.
Well, can't we open it?
Well, it depends. Are you sure you want to see what's on the other side of it?
Yeah, but see, the point is we already seen the other side of it. We just want to know if we're ready to let the ghost out.
Well, you see, that's the other thing. You got to comprehend that everything is, you're calling them corporations. They're subcontractors.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Everybody is. They're subcontractors.
if I may, real quick, I have looked at into Pandora's box, and you know what I saw? Pelosi, Schumer, all the Dems.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Chief, as you were saying.
Well, the other one is a lot of people don't comprehend. Now, what just happened in, what was that, Minneapolis?
Yep.
Okay, guess where you got to file some of your paperwork with the U.S. Treasury and the IRS?
Mm-hmm.
It happens to be right in that town. Wonder why that happened in that town. See, everybody doesn't quite comprehend. This is done by design. It's all a setup.
Well, and also, too, they had to do some things in a town to get information out of that town. They didn't want nobody to find out the records.
Well, it just cracks me up because if you actually look at the video and you look in the background, the gas is 99 cents and $1.89. Current prices there are $2.74 and $2.78.
Mm-hmm.
Did they just automatically jump in the last few weeks? I doubt that. He couldn't have jumped the day he was hurt or killed, supposedly.
Right.
And then they just did the pixel picture situation by somebody doing a scientific study on the pictures. And there's no way a 6'6" man can fit into a 6-foot coffin. Only a 5'4" man could fit in that coffin.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then that's the other one is people aren't comprehending. Yeah, they're corporations. And that's the thing. We're all supposedly corporations by their design.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say, is this okay? They said, they just came along and said, this is the way it is. Really? Well, why is it this way? It's basically enslavement by entrapment. It really is. So,
Nope.
track this out. What would you guys like to study tonight?
Oh, well, what did you have in mind that you want to throw out tonight? Because I wanted to get back into some things that we're already working on, and I got to dive back into that one because I got to finish that other guy's paperwork here. And the two other people I've got to almost finish up, and the other guy already did his paperwork. He's gone, so.
Corpus Juris what is that? Canonici. The body of the canon of law, compiled from the decrees and canons of the Roman Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Emerged during the 12th century, beginning with the publication of Gratian's Decretum, a 1141 to 1150. In addition to the decretum, it includes Raymond of Penafortes Libra Extra 1234 and the Libri Sextus of Pope Boniface VIII 1298. The Clementines of Pope Clement V 1313. The Extravagantus Joannis of Pope John the 12th 1325. At Extravagantus published by Pope John's successors, 1499.
We're not getting into religion. We're explaining to how this developed into our country, how they're forcing us to a foreign religious belief. Go ahead.
In 1582, the entire collection was edited by a commission of church dignitaries and officially named the Corpus Juris Canonici. It remained.
And don't forget, those are our corporation heads.
Right. It remained the Catholic Church's primary body of law until the promulgation of the Code of Canon Law in 1917, now replaced that of 1983.
And part of that was done in San Francisco, California at the, what was the church? Oh, Star of the Sea Chapel. And see, it is one of those things when you get to know what churches and how these things affect you in your areas of what goes on. And that's why I don't believe in religion, because the whole part comes down to is they're dictating you how to live behind the back door. And it's like the movie Wizard of Oz, watching the puppet man, watching him do what he's doing behind the closed curtain. Go ahead, Chief.
And then basically there's all sorts of goodies we can go into. It all depends on what you want to play with tonight. Now,
yeah, so I wanted to, we'll get into a little bit more of that one, because I wanted to get back into this one that I was getting into. I don't know if you heard the beginning of the conversation, what they want me to do when I go into the hospital in 12 days.
Yes, but you know how you can actually do that one. You write up yourself a piece of paper and hand it to them and ask them if they're going to actually take full responsibility to any damage and pay all damages for the rest of your life.
Oh, no, I'm doing that. And not only that, I'm going to have that paper in my hand and I'm serving the board before I get there.
So did you want to know about the Debtors Act of 1869?
Well, actually, that's a good one. We should go over, seeing that I'm dealing with that one right now in the medical field. Go ahead.
An English statute that, among other things, 1, abolished imprisonment for debt except in certain cases as when a debtor owed a debt to the Crown or a debtor had money but refused to pay a debt. 2, abolished arrest by mense process, that is, by compelling the defendant to appear and give bail unless it was believed that the defendant could leave the country. 3, made it a misdemeanor to obtain credit under false pretenses or to defraud creditors. And 4, defined how warrants and judgments orders would be executed.
That's why you don't get into credit cards.
And then here's my favorite one, Deceptive Act. As defined by the Federal Trade Commission and most state statutes, conduct that is likely to deceive a consumer acting responsibly under similar circumstances, also termed as deceptive sales practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite, because it's right above my mother's name, it says informant, which comes from informer. A private citizen who brings a team. Some statutes, a private citizen is required to sue the offender for a penalty before any criminal liability can attach. Also termed common informer. See common informer. Well, seriously, you mean to tell me that my mother informed on me when I was born because I was a criminal?
And your mom didn't even know you were a criminal?
I know. And here she was me all those days.
Well, isn't that the same thing that we keep being told, that we're all born, as sinners when we're born because we've already committed the sin before we had a chance of life, so we're paying the penance for it as we live?
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets to me about when Christians tell me this stuff, and I'm like, and I've gone to churches and I've listened to this shit over the last 35 years. And telling me how I'm the bad man because I didn't pay my pendants or I didn't give my 10% to somebody. But I'm the guy that when, somebody needs a shirt off their back, I've taken my shirt off or my coat off my back, giving it to somebody, giving somebody a ride, 60 miles out of my way to make sure that that individual got home safe. So, I mean, and that's the point. I'd much rather spend the money doing what I want to do, help people, instead of being forced to give it to some corporation that ain't doing nothing. That's like your city water sales tax and all that. Those monies go right into the Vatican bank account. None of that stuff goes to you and pays out. So go ahead, Chief. I mean, I got off on a tangent, but bring that back in. Let's get back into that.
Well, you want to go into contributory infringement.
Well, that's basically, I guess, what I started leading into.
The act of participating in or contributing to the infringing acts of another person. For contributory infringement, the law imposes vicarious liability. 2. Patents. The act of aiding or abetting another person's patent infringement by knowingly selling a non-staple item that has no substantial non-infringing use and is adapted for use in a patented combination or process. In the patent context, contributory infringement is statutory defined in the Patent Act of 35 U.S.C. A, Statute 271, parentheses C, small c.
Let me interject here for a minute. You notice how in the administrative rules they're calling it statutes? Go ahead, Chief. I just want to clarify that for people.
Yep, because the Supreme Court has stated not once, not twice, but 3 times statutes and codes are not law. The act of either 1, actively inducing, causing, or materially contributing to the infringing conduct of another person, or 2, providing the goods or means necessary to help another person infringe, as by making facilities available for an infringing performance. In the copyright context, contributory infringement is a common law doctrine. 4, trademarks, the manufacturers or distributors' conduct in knowingly supplying for sale goods bearing an infringing mark.
No, there you go with that one. I got to jump in. People keep going, common law, I want common law. I don't want common law. Because common law says rape, rob, and pillage is acceptable. That's common law. I don't want common law. That's the law of the king. Go ahead.
So, copyright infringement, the act of violating any of the copyright owner's exclusive rights granted by the Federal Copyright Act, 17 U.S.C. A, Statutes 106 and 602. A copyright owner has several exclusive rights in copyrighted works, including the rights 1, to reproduce the work, 2, to prepare derivative works based on the work, 3, to distribute copies of the work, 4, for certain kinds of works to perform the work publicly, 5, for certain kinds of works to display the work publicly, 6, for sound recordings to perform the work publicly, and 7, to import into the United States.
What does else-merrill mean?
So, and then you have criminal...
They don't have a definition for elsewhere, do they?
No, they don't. But
see, that's a catcher when you get that, when you think about it.
Yes, because, that's kind of like, the Supreme Court has not held up once but twice and 3 times that police officers are not here to serve the people. Well, if that's
right.
the case, who do they serve? Because they never quite tell you who they serve.
Mm-hmm.
And then criminal infringement, the statutory criminal offense of either 1, willfully infringing a copyright to obtain a commercial advantage or financial gain, 17 U.S.C. A, Statute 506, 18 U.S.C. A, Statute 2319, or 2, trafficking in goods or services that bear a counterfeit mark, 18 U.S.C. A, 2320. Under the second category, the statute imposes criminal penalties if the counterfeit mark is 1, identical with or substantially indistinguishable form, a mark registered on the principal register of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and 2, likely to confuse or deceive the public.
I'm going to jump in here for a second. I just got an email from Ron Paul. The end of the United Nations Arms Treaty in sight. And on his letter he sent me, his email letter, he sent it probably a million people, but he goes, United Nations Small Arms Treaty has been the gun control lobby's crown jewel for decades. Does anybody comprehend what he meant by crown jewel?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I'm saying. People know what's going on, but some of these people can't say because of their position, too. And that's the one thing that You know, people get upset. Why couldn't they do this? Why didn't the senator do that? Why didn't that happen? And it's like the reason why it didn't. You didn't back up the man or woman. You didn't start standing up and making and pushing these issues. I know I've been there on the front line with senators and congressmen getting this stuff out. People said they were going to be there, and then you go up to the meeting or something, they're going to sign up, they're going to file these paperwork, and everybody was going to back. You know, at one point we had over 400 people who was going to sign their paperwork and turn into the House Judiciary Committee hearing on what we were doing on, what was that? Oh, children's rights. All right? I mean, parent rights. But for the children, that the state couldn't take the kids unless they had a grand jury warrant. All right? This goes back to 1999 we had this stuff going. And so when people sit there, and that was Senate Bill 449, that was the Nazi Germany bill. That's the Queen of England, when she came out last month, said how we're going to start stealing your kids again. So you got to pay attention, and you think that the Queen of England and your monarch is not controlling some of the ship that you're on? So go ahead, Chief.
So, crown jewel, a company's most valuable asset, especially is valued when the company is the subject of hostile takeover. A common anti-takeover device is for the target company to sell its crown jewel to a third party so that the company will be less attractive to an unfriendly suitor. See scorched earth defense. Now, just above that is very interesting because you have Crown Court, an English court having jurisdiction over major criminal cases. Crown Courts date from 1971 when they assumed the criminal jurisdiction of the Assize Court.
Wait a minute, 1971?
Yes. Assize courts and all the jurisdiction of the courts of quarter session. Wouldn't that be like Nixon's year, 71?
You got it. That's exactly. That was part of the, what do they call that? Something gate. You know, and don't forget Hillary Clinton was the lawyer back then.
Watergate.
Yeah, no, that's what I was getting to. But don't remember, Hillary Clinton was the lawyer for Watergate.
Both Bill and Hillary were there.
That's right. A lot of your major players were there. They were little junior senators and congressmen back then. Now they're major players. You know, and that's the one thing people don't get, how long these people been, because, I mean, we posted this stuff up, and I don't know if we ever got that up on the new.org tracker website or not, but we have the paperwork from 1789 from the first Senate session and the first Supreme Court decision. The very first Supreme Court decision, 1789, and that was the first Supreme Court decision was that House of Representatives could only do 4 years, and senators could only do 6 years. That's it. One term only. And they weren't to get paid, you know, all this retirement afterwards. You got one check for that period, and when you're done, you're over with. And remember, they didn't get retirement checks until the 1900s, like 1901, when they did the federal employee retirement, and that followed through the 1914 Workmen's Comp Division, when that was founded, and that was the same year of all that was started back then. That was 1914. Go ahead, Chief.
So just above that, you have Crown Case. Just above that, you have Crown says C. King. Crown Case is English law, criminal action. Below the Crown Jewel, you have Crown Land, C. Land, Crown Loan, C. Loan.
And now you go to the bank for?
What's that now?
Don't you go to the bank for a loan?
Yes.
So who owns the bank then? That goes back to the Vatican and the King that owns the banks. And everybody keeps thinking that you have a local bank in your city and county. You don't have no local bank. Because your city cop, your city police department's a bank. Your city council's a bank.
So when you say you don't want common law, are you saying you want local law?
No, I want common sense.
Well, let's see.
Common law can be determined in any way if everybody wants to say if it's common.
I understand that one, but how about this one? A local law, a statute that relates to or operates in a particular locality rather than the entire state. a statute that applies to particular persons or things rather than an entire class of persons or things. Also, senses 1 and 2, local act, local statute, the law of a particular jurisdiction as opposed to the law of a foreign state. Also termed internal law. 4, conflict of laws, the body of standards, principles, and rules, excluding conflict of law rules that the state courts applied to controversies before them. Restatement, 2nd, of conflict law, statute 4, parentheses 1. Oh my goodness, look at that. That happened in 1971 also. Well, isn't that interesting?
Remember, all this stuff didn't change until after Kennedy was assassinated. You got to look at the era and time.
May I?
Yeah,
there were a lot of corporations formed way before Kennedy was killed. I know. I have some of the documents. And I'm going to tell you something else. The corporations are the ones that formed the statutes and the codes. And a lot of people think, boy, I'm just going to fill this document out and I'm going to send this criminal complaint of statutes and codes to Washington, D.C., and they're going to come and arrest these people and do something. Well, they don't care. It's not the Constitution. The highest law in the land is the Constitution and a lawful grand jury. We, the people. If you operate with copyrighted codes and statutes, it's all fiction.
Absolutely.
It's just for money. That's why Oregon is supposed to have $6 billion plus in the court system. Their court system is making them so much money, it's unreal. That's out there on the internet, over $6 billion.
But you see,
it's all over on the internet.
That's
well,
the other one.
even, hang on a second, Chief, but it's like when Carson, and you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yep.
And so when Carson sat in the Capitol, and I'm sitting there because I was working at one of the senator's office, and I'm like, I'm exposing all this shit, and everybody's giving me these dirty looks, as I'm walking around the building, and I'm like, what the hell, I'm doing all this shit, why am I getting dirty looks? And so when I'm talking to Carson, he's the Supreme Court judge. He was the head judge for the state of Oregon. And he goes, Ed, you just don't get it. We bring in $7 billion and we pay out $1 billion. We're still ahead of the game. What do you think of my retirement so big? He said something to that effect, and it was like, it's like, but I just couldn't sell my soul at the company store. So, those are one of those things. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's the other one people have actually been fighting in court with, is to find what money is. The other one is, let's go into maritime jurisdiction. The exercise of authority over maritime cases by the U.S. District Court sitting in Admiralty, C, 28 U.S.C. A, Statute 1333. Cases falling within the jurisdiction are governed by the supplemental rules for certain admiralty and maritime claims, a supplement to the federal rules of civil procedure. The Admiralty. Maritime law, the body of law governing marine commerce and navigation, the transportation at sea of persons and property, and marine affairs in general, the rules governing contract, tort, and workers' compensation claims arising out of commerce on or over water. Also, admiralty law, CF, law of the sea. Arising out of commerce on or over water. So if I'm flying in a plane over the water, this seems pretty interesting when you get into some of these details and when you get into these books and start reading.
Oh, well, you're flying over it, so go ahead, may I?
At Foundation, it's the Stamp Act for our Admiralty courts. All you got to do is study the Stamp Act. Stamp treaties, all the treaties. That's all.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We got to get that put up on the website, too. Because that'd be a good information, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Do you have legal maxims on there also?
Yeah, I think we should have that. We should have that one up. Should have that one up. But it's been a little while since I've been physically over the site. It's been at least 2 months, and I got to re-update myself on it too myself. Because I know there's been some new ads on it too. And we do thank the producer. And so this is the whole point, getting this stuff out. Now, the one thing is that we're going to collaborate and try to get this stuff finished up here on the categories of how all this payment works so you can write it off so you're not going to jail. So long as, the other point, until we got security of ourselves to know what we're doing, I don't want to see people going in and, I'm going to get $100,000 or something like that, It's like, let's get in, let's get to work. I'm working with the Utility Commission of Oregon, so I'm setting it up so that way with the Utility Commission, we set it up through the Utility Commission. They know what's going on because they regulate the companies. Of course, they say they don't, but they do. Otherwise, there's no point for them collecting the taxes that they're writing off. And remember, taxes that you pay are not, going in the hole. They're reinvesting that money into their projects. That's why when you do a Freedom of Information Act on these people, you have to come up with a genius thoughts, Do you have a racetrack? Do you have this or that in the Freedom of Information Act form? And you want to say, no, you want them to respond back. No, we don't sponsor racetracks. No, we don't want to do this. Okay, then you might be surprised. They might say, hey, we might sponsor the pig house down the road. See, this is the one thing is, when you're doing this Freedom of Information Act, ask them. And when they do this, and they talk to you and stuff, what's your main purpose? Educational. I'm educating the kids. Isn't the kid supposed to know the system? Doesn't matter how old you are. You're still a kid at heart. It doesn't matter if you're 65, 60, whatever. See, there are ways to utilize the wording. Because, like I said, everybody keeps telling me, Ed, you always warn the mayor and city council your next step and stuff. I don't tell them everything I'm doing. But I keep them on their toes about what keep filing because I like living in this way. If I disappear, because everybody was trying to get me moved down to California and over to Utah and a few other places, and I'm like, you guys don't get it. Not going to fly. I can't do that going up and down the mountains because my flying. But the other point is I move somewhere, nobody knows me, and I just disappear faster. Here, something happens, everybody knows me in my whole town and the county. So, trust me, in my town, word goes around like lightning. So people know. Shit, I can't tell you how many times I was told I was dead when I was talking to somebody and people were going, looking at me, you're dead. And I said, no, I'm not. So, it's been interesting. So, but go ahead, Chief.
Stamp, noun, an official mark or seal placed on a document, especially to indicate that a required tax, such as a duty or excise tax, has been paid. Stamp acts, English statutes requiring and regulating stamps on deeds, contracts, legal papers, bills, and other documents. Mm-hmm. Stamp duty, history, a tax raised by requiring stamps sold by the government to be affixed to designated documents, thus forming part of the perpetual revenue. See stamp tax under tax. A fifth branch.
Can I add one thing to that one real quick, Chief?
Go.
All right. What I want to bring up to your attention, too, when you do a notarization of public structure, make sure you have your stamp and seal there as well. So when they do theirs, use yours as well. So it's both public and private. So when it's filed, they cannot discriminate on that because you did it correctly. Go ahead.
So it goes into a fifth branch of the perpetual revenue consisting of stamp duties, which are a tax imposed upon all parchment and paper wherein on any legal proceedings or private instruments of almost any nature whatsoever are written, and also upon licenses and pamphlets containing less than 6 sheets of paper. These imposts are various according to the nature of the thing stamped, rising gradually from a penny to 10 pounds. 1. William Blackstone, Commentaries on the Laws of England. 312 to 313 from 1765. Blackstone's is the law book for the English. If you want to look that up, and you can find it in a PDF form and download it. I know it because I have it.
And I know it's on the PDF form, and I don't know if we ever put it up on the site or not.
Well, if not, I'll send it to you.
Oh, yeah, because I'll put it on the Facebook sites, too. Because it is good to have the stuff and read it and back and forth and go back and forth and read it and pay attention, because sometimes you might not catch a word, and all of a sudden the word goes, ding! You know, I get people all the time tell, I'm not a lawyer, I can't read this. And I said, you don't have to be a lawyer, can you think? And then people go, what, are you trying to be disrespectful or rude? I said, well, you said it, I didn't. You know, if you can't think, that's the problem. We have to think. We have to take a pen and paper. We have a thought, write it down, and come back to it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I sat there and I'm going to remember that. And then you go back on, what was that? So always write the stuff down. You know, so add on to that, Steve, because I got something else I want to bring up to what I think you're going in the direction. Go ahead.
So bond trust, a trust whose principal consists of bonds that yield interest income. Charitable trust, a trust created to benefit a specific charity, specific charities, or the general public rather than a private individual or entity. Charitable trusts are often eligible for favorable tax treatment, also termed public trust, charitable use. And then you can see private trust. Now, the one I really liked that we found out this week was El Delicto Trust, Ex Delicto Trust, a trust that is created for an illegal purpose, especially to prevent the settlers' creditors from collecting their claims out of the trust property. Boy, does that sound familiar?
Wait a minute, back up to that last paragraph there.
To prevent the settlers' creditors from collecting their claims out of the trust property. Boy, does that sound familiar like me.
Yeah, that's why I had to back you up here, because you're reading something, and that's what I'm saying. It's so important when we read this stuff, get what they're saying, because normally people just read through that point, and then, but that sentence said so much right there. So that's the point, you know? I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, you could actually type your social security number into your bank of the bank that you were born in. Okay, I know I was born in San Francisco, and I know the bank that was probably where my banknote was, my birth certificate was. So you could type it in. I mean, it's there, folks. It really is there. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, I was going to go into the Conformity Act, history, an 1872 federal statute providing that the practice of procedure in federal district courts, other than in equity and admiralty matters.
Right, excuse me, let me hit that point. When he said district courts are foreign courts, not corporation. They're corporation courts. They are not we the people courts. Go ahead, Chief.
So then it goes into must conform to the practice and procedure used by the state courts for like cases. The federal rules of civil procedure effective in 1938 supersede the Conformity Act. Even where there was conformity, it was to be as near as may be, and this was understood by the court to make the Conformity Act to some extent only directory and advisory, and to permit the federal judge to disregard a state practice that would, in his view, unwisely encumber the administration of the law or tend to defeat the ends of justice. With all these exceptions to conformity, and with the judge left somewhat at large to decide when he would conform, it is hardly surprising that the result was, in the view of a distinguished commentator, a mixture of conflicting decisions which have served to cloud the whole subject in hideous confusion and shifting certainty. Charles Allen Wright, The Law of Federal Courts, Statute 61, at 425 through 26, 5th edition, 1994, quoting Indianapolis and St. Louis R.Y., period, Company, v. Horst, 93 U.S. 291, 300 to 301, 1876. And then did you want to go into chattel paper just out of curiosity?
Yeah, actually, that would be a good one to touch on, seeing that we were covering that 2 weeks ago.
A writing that shows both monetary obligation and a security interest in or a lease of specific goods. Chattel paper is generally used in a consumer transaction when the consumer buys goods on credit. The consumer typically promises to pay for the goods by executing a promissory note, and the seller retains a security interest in the goods. The security agreement. Chattel paper means a record or records that evidence...
Can I stop you there for a minute, Chief?
Go for it.
All right, I want to bring this up because this is a point that's a good point. Because you get these people out there going, hey, you write me a promissory note and I write you one. And so we can borrow and make a lien on those promissory notes and we can collect on them. And you don't realize that when people do that, that is called federal fraud. Because you're not giving a service out of it. You're doing it where it's an illegal transaction. Go ahead.
Chattel paper means a record or records that evidence both a monetary obligation and a security interest in or a lease of specific goods of a specific goods and software used in the goods. The term does not include a charter or other contract involving the use or hire of a vessel. If a
Say that again. Read that whole paragraph again. I want to get the 2 words out of that.
Chattel paper means a record or records that evidence both a monetary obligation and a security interest in or a lease of specific goods or of specific goods and software used in the goods. The term does not include a charter or other contract involving the use or hire of a vessel. If a transaction is evidenced both by a security agreement or lease and by an instrument or series of instruments, the group of records taken together constitutes chattel paper. U.C.C. Statute 9-102A, Section 8.
And also, too, if you go to Section 8, Washington, D.C. Code, part of this is in the lower part of it. Go ahead.
Electronic chattel paper. Chattel paper evidenced by a record or records consisting of information stored in an electronic medium in retrievable and perceivable form. And that falls under UCC Statute 9-102A22. Tangible chattel paper. Chattel paper evidenced by a record or records consisting of information that is inscribed on a tangible medium. UCC Statute 9-102A54. Oh, that reminds me. Doesn't the birth certificate come on chattel paper?
You got it.
So where else would we like to go this evening? We have our nice Black's Law Dictionary, number 7th edition out tonight that we're quoting from. Of course, we do have 6 and 5 for backup, and I think 8's lying around here somewhere. So, you know, anything you really want to play with, we can look it up in here, and then you might want to go to your Webster's Dictionary and see what they say, because that really has some interesting conflict sometimes.
People forget about the dictionary, you know that, and how it has so much legal stuff in it.
Well, and I like it because they always have, like, the Constitution in the back of these books. So you can actually look up the Constitution right in the back of the book. And depending on which they're at now, volume 11 is out now. So.
It's amazing how they keep adding different new words in it, too, nowadays.
Well, I mean, if you want to go into trust, I can go into trust, but it's a long one.
Well, we should do that because people need to know about trust because you need to do that for yourselves.
So the trust is a noun, the right enforceable solely in equity to the beneficial enjoyment of property to which another person holds the legal title. A property interest...
Now, wait a minute. Let me define legal title. Legal is a courtroom technology word. It's a legal structure is British. It's not lawful. That is owned. Go ahead.
Okay, legal title, a property interest held by one person, the trustee, at the request of another, the settlor, for the benefit of a third party, the beneficiary. For a trust to be valid, it must involve specific property, reflect the settler's intent, and be created for a lawful purpose. A fiduciary relationship regarding property and subjecting the person with title to the property to equitable duties to deal with it for another's benefit. The confidence placed in a trustee, together with the trustee's obligations toward the property and the beneficiary. A trust arises as a result of a manifestation of an intention to create it. See fiduciary relationship. The property so held, trust fund, for a business combination that aims at a monopoly. See antitrust. A trust involves three elements, namely, 1, a trustee who holds the trust property and is subject to equitable duties to deal with it for the benefit of another. 2, a beneficiary to whom the trustee owes equitable duties to deal with the trust property for his benefit. 3, trust property which is held by the trustee for beneficiary. Restatement second of trust, statute 2, CMT, period, H, 1959. One must distinguish, in countries where English is spoken, between a wide and narrow sense of the word trust. In the wide sense, a trust exists when property is to be held or administered by one person on behalf of another for some purpose other than his own benefit. In the narrow or strict sense, a trust exists when the creator of the trust hands over or is bound to hand over the control of an asset which, or the proceeds of which, is to be administered by another, the trustee or administrator, in his capacity as such for the benefit of some person, beneficiary, other than the trustee, or for some impersonal object. A trust in the sense of a species of a genus trust, in the wide sense, Tony Honorea, the South African Law of Trust, Statutes 1 through 2 and 1 through 3, 3rd edition, 1985. Some courts and legal writers have defined a trust as a certain kind of right that the beneficiary has against the trustee, or a certain kind of interest that the beneficiary has against the trustee, or a certain kind of interest that the beneficiary has in the trust property, thus looking at it from the point of view of the beneficiary. While it is true that the beneficiary has the right or interest described, the trust is something more than the right or interest of the beneficiary. The trust is the whole judicial device, the legal relationship between the parties with respect to the property that is its subject matter, including not merely the duties that the trustee...
Can I interrupt you for a minute on that statement there? That's claiming that trust is the judge. Go ahead.
Then it says, the parties with respect to the property that it is subject matter, including not merely the duties that the trustee owes to the beneficiary and to the rest of the world, but also the rights, privileges, powers, and immunities that the beneficiary has against the trustee and against the rest of the world. It would seem proper, therefore, to define trust either as a relationship having certain characteristics stated in the definition, or perhaps as a juridical device or legal institution involving such a relationship. The 1 Austin W. Scott and William F. Frachner, The Law of Trust, Statute 2.4 at 42, 4th edition, 1987.
Did you say 1987?
1987.
Oh, see, this is what I'm saying. And everything that all this stuff is old, and all this stuff has been, this stuff has been readapted, folks. And so that's why you want to go by the original foundation. If you're going to fight them, you have to still by the original foundation.
And then there's several different trusts in here. You have all sorts of different ones. You have Charitables, Clayton Trust, Clifford Trust, Express Trust, Express Private.
Charitable Trust would be a good one to hit, so that way people get to comprehend that one.
Which one?
Charitable is basically comes down to how your local government considers them to you.
Yep. It says a trust created to benefit a specific charity, specific charities, or the general public rather than a private individual or entity. Charitable trusts are also eligible for favorable tax treatment. Now, the one that gets me is this nice one called Foreign Cities Trust. Mm-hmm. A trust that owes its existence to foreign law.
For tax purposes, this type of trust is treated as a non-resident alien individual. Which is funny. Doesn't that fall under the 14th Amendment?
Yeah. Does that fall into the large C or the small c?
Yes. Now, private trust, a trust created for the financial benefit of one or more designated beneficiaries rather than for the public benefit. An ordinary trust as opposed to a charitable trust. 3 elements must be presented for a private trust. 1, sufficient words to create it. 2, a definite subject matter. And 3, a certain or ascertained object, also termed personal trust.
Read that again.
A trust created for the financial benefit of one or more designated beneficiaries rather than for the public benefit. An ordinary trust as opposed to a charitable trust. These 3 elements must be present for a private trust. 1, sufficient words to create it. 2, a definite subject matter. And 3, a certain or ascertained object, also termed personal trust. And then we have protective trust underneath it, a trust that is designed to protect the trust property to ensure the continued support of a beneficiary. In a broad sense, a spendthrift support or other similarly protective trust is one created to provide a fund for the maintenance of the beneficiary and at the same time to secure it against the beneficiary's improvidence or incapacity. 7-6 American Jurisprudence 2D Trust Statute 121. Well, look at there, from 1992.
Well, it's like people don't realize, Clinton's been involved in writing a lot of this stuff from the 1970s. That's like when Bill Clinton put that law in 1997 that says your children are owned by the state attorney general. Because they're human capital or cattle. So, it amazes me how, people don't comprehend how all this works. Then your cops sit there and go, I don't know this stuff. I wasn't trained in it. And you talk to people all the time on the street or whatever. Well, that's not my pay grade. And that offends me more when somebody tells me that's not their pay grade. In other words, they're telling you politely to fuck off. Because they already know it, but they don't care. They already got their job. They already got their pension lined out. So, you got to read between the lines about your public employees and the words, too. It is so frustrating what we're going through. So, you got something else going on?
Trust buster, noun, a person, especially a federal officer, who seeks the dissolution of trust under the antitrust laws. See trust. Trustee, 1, who having legal title to property holds it in a trust for the benefit of another and owes a fiduciary duty to the beneficiary. Generally, a trustee's duties are to convert to cash all debts and securities that are not qualified legal investments, to reinvest the cash in proper securities, to protect and preserve the trust property, and to ensure that it is employed solely for the beneficiary in accordance with the directions contained in the trust instrument. And then we have trustee el maleficio, a person who is guilty of wrongful or fraudulent conduct and is held by equity to the duty of a trustee in relation to the subject matter to prevent him or her from profiting from the wrongdoing. And 2 in that just happens to be bankruptcy. An officer of the court who is elected by creditors or appointed by a judge to act as the representative of a bankruptcy estate. The trustee's duties include 1, collecting and reducing to cash the assets of the estate, 2, operating the debtor's business with court approval, if appropriate, to preserve the value of business assets, 3, examining the debtor at a meeting of creditors. 4, filing inventories and making periodic reports to the court on the financial condition of the estate. 5, investigating the debtor's financial affairs. 6, examining proofs of claims and objecting to improper claims. 7, furnishing information relating to the bankruptcy to interested parties, and 8, opposing the discharge through bankruptcy if advisable, also termed in sense 2, bankruptcy trustee, trustee in bankruptcy. Interim trustee, a bankruptcy trustee appointed to perform all the functions and duties of a trustee until the regular trustee is selected and qualified. Before the meeting of creditors, the interim trustee often preliminary investigates the debtor's assets and financial affairs. Isn't that interesting? Because I don't believe any of that in the bankruptcy one is going on in any courtroom I've ever been in.
No, and you know, I mean, and the judge is supposed to notify you of that too, because it's your birth certificate that you're going in for on that, because that's how they get paid off it when they put you in jail. So they're supposed to notify you that. So they just committed treason and fraud and extortion. And if they had anything that was done in the mail fraud.
And you can back that up with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act.
What was that?
The Sarbanes-Oxley Act, 2007. Bush put that into play.
Well, yeah, you know why he put that into play? Because that way he couldn't go to prison.
Well, that was because of all the horse crap that was going on with the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and all the...
Well, yeah, everybody had to cover their ass because they were doing that. And who bailed them out? Oh, that's right. If anybody knows that in history, that's when they first went in and robbed the first, what was that, $2 trillion from Social Security?
Yes.
To pay off the debts that they incurred for the war. See, people don't realize Social Security is not bankrupt. Remember, your Social Security is the same bank card for the structure of the banks, too. I mean, that's why when people say, oh, get rid of your Social Security card. No, I filed it and I own it. And they want to use it, and that's what I did. I filed on them in the county here when they were doing all their shenanigans on me. And I filed, theft of services and all this stuff. And I've got in emails and stuff. And then I had to go find out what court to go to because I couldn't go to the local court. I couldn't go to the state district court. And I knew the district court meant England, not America. So and that's the whole point, learning what court system and where to file the real paperwork and the real structure so that way you're not in their, still in their game and their captivity. Go ahead, Chief.
Trust receipt, a pre-UCC security device now governed by Article 9 of the Code, consisting of a receipt stating the wholesale buyer has possession of the goods for the benefit of the financier. Today there must be USU be a security agreement coupled with a filed financing statement. 2, a method of financing commercial transactions by which title passes directly from the manufacturer or seller to a banker or lender, who as owner delivers the goods to the dealer on whose behalf the banker or lender is acting, and to whom title ultimately goes when the banker or lender's primary right has been satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's what people don't get. You're supposed to be saying, and you're actually supposed to be saying, put a statement back to the banker and the court that amends has been made. That's where that term comes in, amends. It's not always just a religious word.
Then you probably want to look up the Truth in Lending Act, see Consumer Credit Protection Act also. Abbreviation CILA.
Well, see, it's like everybody gets me on, what's your credit score? I said, nothing. Why? Because I don't have credit cards. I don't do anything. And if I have any credit score at all, that means somebody's using my identification, and that's fraud because it's copyrighted. And then, everybody keeps going, well, you need to do your UCC. When I did my UCC, I filed and owned it. And when I filed and owned it from the Secretary of State of Oregon and California Secretary of State goes, you're very few people I've seen to do this, so you understand what you're doing. I said, I think so. I believe so. And just as long as you believe, that's all that matters to me. That's what the guy said to me. You know, so that's the point. Some of these people really do know what's going on in the system, and everybody keeps saying, well, they're supposed to do this and they're supposed to do that. They are doing, most of them are doing their job. You have to know your placement, because the one thing is that the courts used to, the clerks used to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago would actually take the time and help people write their paperwork. You know, and then all of a sudden people started putting in the paperwork and they weren't listening to the people that was helping them, and they changed it or did whatever they wanted, or they took advice without getting it double checked, and so they only knew part of what they were telling the individual, and so they didn't do it right, and so, but that's a learning experience. So you can't punish people for those people that were learning, but you can punish those people who knew exactly what they were doing and give people the wrong advice. But we had a lot of good public servants out there that were actually helping people. And then when people started suing them, because, they didn't comprehend what a word meant or something like that, and they blamed the public employee without researching it themselves and being an adult instead of a child. That's one thing people forget about that. Go ahead, Chief.
Tri-title, the judicial examination of a title. See trespass to tri-title, action to quiet title under action. And here's one of the nice ones that I just recently found. It's called the Tucker Act, a federal law enacted in 1887 to ameliorate the inadequacies of the original authority of the Court of Claims by extending that court's jurisdiction to include 1, claims founded on the Constitution, a federal statute or a federal regulation, and 2, damage claims in cases not arising in tort.
Oh, I need that one sent to me.
I'll type it up and send it to you.
Oh, that just made a lot of sense of what I'm doing right now, when I'm running for office and doing stuff. Because like I said, I'm going to get the floor back to you here in a second, but see, like I said, I'm doing things totally different in this campaign I'm doing. That was the thing, that they've already got my name and that they can't get rid of my name. I already filed as a native. They can't sit there and do that because nobody's ever filed as a native before. And by Oregon State Constitution, the federal Constitution, the Native Americans and the Indian treaties are the law of the land, not their administrative rules. So nobody's ever sat there and gone in this direction before, the way I've been informed and talked to people. So go ahead, Chief.
I believe I was going to kind of wrap that up because I was checking the time. I don't know how the producer is doing.
Oh, I didn't see what time it was.
We also have the 12 tables of Roman law.
Yeah.
And,
well, why don't we hit that, and then we'll call it at night after that point.
Yep. 12 tables, Roman law, the early surviving legislation enacted by the Romans, written on 12 tablets in the 5th century B.C. Tables set out all main rights, debtors' rights, family law, criminal law, wills, torts, and public law. They substitute a written body of laws easily accessible and binding on all citizens of Rome for an unwritten usage accessible to only a few. The law of the 12 tables was also known as the Lex Duodecimum Tabularum. The 12 tables continue to be recognized for many centuries as the fundamental law of the Romans. They did not formally lose this charter until it was taken from them by the legislation of Justinian. James Hadley, Introduction to Roman Law, 74 through 75, 1881. And that's the other thing. Documents that date longer. When Ed's quoting this stuff, and he's quoting it from the old days, okay, that falls under the grandfather clause for one. If they try to tell you you can't use anything before 1938, that's a violation of the grandfather clause.
Yes, right off the bat.
And then the other one is, the older the document, the more standing it has.
And I always say, if a judge speaks up against you saying something like that, mandatorily say fraud upon the court, and I disagree with your point.
Or fraud in the inducement.
Well, that's, yeah. And also, too, at the end of that, you say, I object to your statement.
Oh, I do have one more. The two-witness rule. One, the rule that to support a per jury conviction, two independent witnesses or one witness along with the corroborating evidence must establish that the alleged perjurer gave false testimony. 2. The rule as stated in the U.S. Constitution that no person may be convicted of treason without two witnesses to the same overt act or unless the accused confesses in open court. U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Statute 2, Clause 2. Geez, that's funny. We could really go after these idiots on the Democratic side.
No, say that, because me and Dave did that 7 years ago, and people thought we were crazy when we filed the treason charges on Obama. But it was blipped in some of the newsreels, and everybody thought it was a joke. But we actually filed criminal treason charges on Obama. That was what Dave Lee Bruce and I did in 2013 when we filed on the Queen, the judge, and the Pope and all that. Go ahead.
Well, that just kind of leads me to who laughs best, doesn't it? I mean...
Oh, yes, exactly.
So what can I say there?
Say, smoke them and drink them as you got them.
Yep. So...
and that is the point. People don't get how life is so simple. So, anyhow, I would like to say thank you, Chief, again for joining us. Does anybody got anything else before we decide to wrap it up? Because we got really going off on stuff and nobody spoke up. But remember, you can always say excuse me or anything and speak up anytime you want. So the floor is to anybody before we close up. Okay, I heard clicking, but that was it. All right. Go ahead, Chief, give a little deal, and then I'll wrap it up.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming by. We'll see them again next weekend, or at least hear from them next weekend. There is a number posted with a little code situation. You're welcome to call in and participate. That's what we want. We want to hear your views and viewpoints. We want to hear what you got going on. This is the only way we can get the information out. That's the other reason why we ask before we end the show, because if you have something and we can't answer it, well, at least we get 7 days to come up with it for the next one. And with that, I'd like to thank the producer, which, I'm surprised that he hasn't chimed in more than he usually does, because we really do appreciate when he does chime in, because, he makes it good, he makes it fun, and we appreciate everything he does, especially giving his time. So,
suck up. I'm going to have to say suck up on that one.
Okay, well then I guess I won't thank Ed for anything if you're going to go in that direction.
I guess you were told, huh?
Yeah. I think I've officially been put in my place once again.
Anyhow, no, would you quit? You gotta go outside, go outside. No, I'm not doing that yet. Go outside. The door's open. Move. Escape. Run.
No, keep going, Chief. Sorry, the way you were buttering me up, I'm going to have to call suck up on that one.
Oh, come on now. I don't think I could operate this show. Somebody would have to instruct me on it. I'm a little bit better in getting in the books and doing paperwork and, tracking things down like that Tucker Act. You know what I'm saying? And, I think that actually leads from Tucker, the automobile maker, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, and that is my grandmother's first cousin.
What an automobile. What a shame he couldn't get it off the ground. But then again, that shows you our governmental oppression.
Oh, yeah, but, he was able to produce the 41 cars when they were going to try to put him in jail over not producing them.
Well, the sabotage that went on with it, because people were afraid, and it's a shame because, the first one to have a directional light in the middle of the car that went with the wheels in front. So when you turned, the actual center light turned to watch the road.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said,
that was genius when you think about it. And not only that, two, Mercedes and one of the other car companies is doing that now.
Yep.
You know, that's like Ford when he had the first electric car that went from New York City to San Francisco and back to New York City. It never needed a charge. It ran off the alternators.
Yeah. Boy, I'd like to see that design.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so I mean, yeah. It's simple when you think about it. It has to be. It can't be something, you know, more than that, because the generators just have to recharge the batteries all the time. So you got to have one battery of a backup, so you're going to have at least 10 batteries you're running on. So, anyhow, Chief, you done?
Yes, indeed. Just like to say hi to my aunt and my cousin. Hope
Cool.
they're doing well.
Good. Hey, I'd like to say good night to all. We appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Keep the emails going. I still got to respond back to 3 people. I got the other one I'm still working on. Haven't finished it, to let you know. I'm bouncing back and forth on a couple projects. So I'm trying to get everything caught up. I'll get hopefully yours done here in the next 24 hours. And then people, I've sent out everybody who sent me the emails that I'm aware of. And if I missed your email, double check and email me again. Because I've been swamped with a lot of emails and responding back with information to people that have requested. And so that's the whole point. When we read this stuff and give it out to you and stuff, you know, and you send me your emails, I send this stuff to you, pass it on. It's your responsibility to pass on the education. It's not mine. Once you got it in your hand, in your possession, pass it on. Because if we don't educate each other, it ain't going to happen. And you got to remember, your school district ain't going to educate your kids on this stuff. Because if your kids knew this stuff, they wouldn't put up with the crap they're being told in school. Oh, that's right. You don't need to eat the crap they're serving you in school, because the school is supposed to provide healthy lunches by law. You know, I know. I was on a school committee back 20 years ago, so, a long time ago, 20-plus years ago. But, I mean, it's like, so when you look at this stuff, like I said, I've been in and out of the government off and on for 50 years. Well, 40 years. So it's just pay attention what the real truth is. Don't get wrapped up in these people that want to get you off of some fantasy land. So with that, may you have a good evening, and may the Creator overlook for you and look out for you. Mother provide food and shelter, and the Creator, without Him, Father wouldn't have any of us.
All right. You've been listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnson. It is Saturday, June 13th, 2020. Now, Ed says he doesn't want common law. He wants common sense. The problem is, and this is just my opinion, and honestly, I've been watching it for a while, common sense is taught by the parents. But whenever you've got the parents throwing the kids over to their private schools or to the public schools and being taught by government officials, which teachers...
All right. That's big slap. All right, I got your big slap.
Which teachers are government officials because they get paid by the government. Effectively, they don't teach common sense because they don't want common sense.
It was good. I didn't see that big slap coming.
It wasn't a bitch slap to you, Ed. It's the aspect of common sense is so rare now. It should be considered a superpower because not only are they dumbing down us on they've been doing it for generations on,
Right.
legal, lawful, what's our actual constitution, what's the corporate constitution, which they used to teach even back in the 40s. Once the federal government took over got taken over by a corporation, and the corporation started taking over the standardized school system. They started dumbing.
1968.
Right, they started dumbing down every single one. Do you realize, as of today, a college student can only read and write at a 9th grade level?
Yes, I know.
That basically means you're sending them from 9th grade to 10th, 11th, 12th, and then to college, spending all that money for them not to learn crap except my feelings are hurt and I'm a special snowflake.
No, they're being taught socialism. My God, you can't say this word or that word. And you have to donate to this corporation or that corporation. I mean, no, to a nonprofit you believe in.
Yeah, stuff like that. They're being taught all that because that is what the Democrats have been focusing on. And honestly, our Republican or our Republic representatives are not much better than the Democrats themselves. They're only in it for their own.
Republicans are no different because they're Republicans.
To chime back in real quick, if you actually look it up, KOCH brothers are the ones who actually put in the Common Core system for the public school system.
Who was that?
The Koch brothers.
Oh, yeah, that was put in. They were trying to get me, and I'm not interrupting you, programmer, producer. But the thing that gets to me back in, I think it was like 2002, they were trying to get me to endorse the Koch brothers and all this when I was running for the first time I ran for county commissioner. And they were trying to get me to really sweeten up, and if I would buy this, and if I would support and jump through this hoop and that hoop, I was supposed to guarantee election. But, and there's no way I would have done it. But yeah, the Koch brothers that's a true statement. And remember, the Koch brothers are involved with, the Rothschild family, because they're direct cousins.
Leave her there alone.
Well, speaking of Coke, we're talking Koch brothers that are in charge of Coca-Cola, right?
No, KOCH.
No!
KOCH.
Oh,
We're
Coke.
talking to Koch brothers who own the timber companies. We're talking to Koch brothers who own the banks and who got forest land contracts that have no right to get forest land contracts by law.
Okay, well, but I'm still going to point out with Coke, Pepsi, and various other products, HEK293. That is Henry Echo Kilo 293.
Are you talking baby parts?
We're talking human embryonic kidney number 293.
Parts, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and research that. It's an flavor additive in a lot of the food you eat. With that, guys, we'll see you next week. And remember, Papa's Day is coming up, so if you actually like your Papa, get him, not a tie. I'm sorry, the ties are just, no. Are you telling him to go strangle himself? Is that it?
Buy him a nice bottle of something he enjoys.
If he drinks, some don't.
Fishing rod.
Fishing rod, there you go. There he can go out and relax. Or a golf club to beat you with. Either way, we'll see you next week, guys. And thank you, everybody, for coming on.